After fixing a number of these together, I've kind of figured out a best way to assemble this last phase. The way to do it is to get all the side panels fixed up with all the wirings done and ready. And you kind of want like a raised platform so that you can do the assembly on. Take one of these side pieces. The top might warp a bit because of the size of it, but the bottom doesn't warp because it's rigid because of the ridge. So I'm going to fix this on first. This is the front with the little square window there. Match that to the letter F. The key to do it is to get one of the corner screws in first. Yeah, this is a bit fiddly, so yeah, be careful not to drop the leg assembly. So when the corner is in, stretch the piece a little bit to get the other corner in. So notice I put it on a bit of sponge so I can doesn't scratch anything, and I can exert a little bit of force. It's still a little bit flimsy, so get all four of the screws on that front panel up first. So that's fairly secure. So get the other front panel. So these are the two front panels. And we're going to do the same thing. Well, I'll explain to you why I've decided to do it in this order later on. So the platform could be anything, just like a bunch of books. And always adjust the legs with the side that's attached to the servo. Once that's done, you'll notice that there is a very big gap here. There's a lot of warping there. So that's the reason why I want to secure the base first. So the reason why I don't want to secure the middle first is when you secure the middle first, and because it's warped, when you screw the rest of the assembly in, it exerts a lot of pressure on the middle. So by doing the rest first, I will be able to secure the middle without that much pressure on. So I'm just wiring it up right now. So the Gatling gun is number 8. The LEDs are 1, 2, and 4. I'm not going to plug in the voltage wire first because it's going to get in the way. So get the power barrel in first, and that 5-volt regulated plug in at the side. You can refer to the assembly instructions for where to plug everything in. So A0, the black facing the power barrel. A2, same thing, the black facing outside. And A4, black on the outside. So all the controllers are in. The last controller is number 7. It's a little bit fiddly to put in number 7. If you really need to remove the servos on 9 and 10. Yeah, I've unplugged the servos on 9 and 10 so you can get into 7 easier. So put the left servo back into 9 and the AA gun servo back into 10. So this is the last yellow LED from the back panel. So once I got that, I'll put the breakout board onto the microcontroller board. And I've just plugged in the voltage little red wire in. So turn this around and I'll just get the last 4 bottom screws in. So you see the exhaust pipes hanging out here. The last 2 screws are a little bit tight. You might need to use a screwdriver instead of the electrical screwdriver. So I'm going to get the first couple of threads in by hand and use the electrical screwdriver. Right, so all 3 panels are attached to the base. So if you see, you can look at the top. You can see how the warping is affecting it. So the way I want to solve this is actually to put the lid on first. So I'm going to fix the machine gun panel before I put the lid on. So I'm going to connect the LED of the lid into number 0 first. And this is what I do. So if you see that there's this little hook in the back, you can just hang the lid over there while I install the machine gun assembly here. So if you find your machine guns not rattling when you turn them on, the thing to do is to shorten these bits of the machine gun bracket. You have to really be really careful not to like ruin the screw hole. So cut them down, to about 1 millimeter away from the screw hole, and trim out the corners as well. Use a file to smoothen it out, and do this on all four sides. That should give you a little bit more space for the rattling to take place. Yeah, so this is just stuff that I figured out, having built like 4 or 5 of these in a row. Yeah, it's good to have some tweezers around in case you drop screws and stuff like that. So I use the long screws to attach the machine guns to the machine gun holder. And while the top bits are still a bit warped, you might need to stretch a little bit to make sure that the machine guns can fit in. But that's fine because it just helps you push everything back into shape. So there, the lid has stayed safely on throughout the entire time that I was putting on the machine gun bracket. And so now I can just put on the lid. You can face it a little bit to the right or to the left. The part with the 2 holes will be aligned straight with the front. Yep, I'll do this side first. Line up the holes. And screw it in. Also screw in the screws on the middle of the body panels. So because while you're doing that, you're actually stretching the body panels further and further into place. So by doing that, you kind of push the side panel slightly inwards, so your fitting will get better. This side doesn't quite warp so much because of the because of this square opening for the battery, and it just makes it more rigid. So because of the flex, I'll get the one in the middle in first. So let's kind of stretch this a little bit so this will fit a little bit better. So you can see there's actually a pretty big warp over here. This side is a lot better, and this front is really bad because of the hole there. It just warps a lot more. So I've got this as close as I can with all the other screws. You can either screw in the top first, which I recommend because otherwise you might have not a lot of space to fiddle with your screws. If the warp is really high, you can actually put on the faceplate first and use the faceplate to push it even further into place. So get the screws halfway onto the faceplate and put on one side, screw in one side. And give it a bit of a stretch so you can get the other side in there. So once these are secured, you actually pushes the middle part, much further in. So it's much easier to bring everything closer together. The way to get that last bit done is to use a hairdryer. So if you have a really big gap, just use a hairdryer to heat up. Not to, don't spend too much time on one spot, just to heat up that entire area so that it will warp into place. Yeah, don't overdo this or you damage the paint. You can see that the line kind of disappears. And likewise, if you see this area being kind of warped, you can use the hairdryer. Yeah, so once you use the hairdryer, it softens it a bit and you can really quickly screw this in and you get that really nice. Yeah, and this last side usually don't have much of a warp there, so it should be really easy to do this side. So the last are, the 6 cosmetic screws. Alright, so there you go. The last stage would be to screw on the leg shields. I always leave these to the end because they are completely cosmetic and they're also the most fragile. So I hope that's been helpful. So use this series of videos to support your assembly instructions when you're doing your build. Right, thank you.